So here I am starting 1914 offensive Outrance and working through the initial steps in the sequence of play. I'm down to the maneuver movement phase for the French. And this is tricky. I want to be sure that I get my strategic plans right. So I'm laying out tokens based on what's going on a sort of per command basis. Now, it's a little weird because this is the 1st, 2nd Army Division, and my primary goal is definitely in the 2nd Army area. And also, some of these secondary goals look more like they give me capabilities to fall back. It just is a very, very odd position. Notably, I can't use the 1st Army to try to get Mulhausen, which I want to get in the first 7 turns or whatever. So there's a lot of confusing sort of positioning there. Setting these out helped me kind of visualize putting some tokens down. I'm kind of dividing it up and trying to slice. Hey, I'll do 1 army at a time because this is such a big undertaking overall. I can't grasp the whole game in my head at once, sort of. The Serbian one, I could split it into areas a little more easily because the front wasn't as dense. And then I've also got, this problem where I've got to create some kind of solid line eventually to Verdun. I don't know. I have some time to do that. I think that's around game turn 8 or something. But, there's these things I've got to keep in mind. On top of all that, I took a day completely off gaming. Yesterday, I've been having these stomach problems, and I told you a little bit about it. I think, at first I joked about cancer. Now I'm actually kind of worried, given some of the things that are happening. But, worried in the sense that, like, it's going to be painful. It was really, really painful. Like, to the point where I needed painkillers to sleep, real ones. Which I usually don't touch anything. But yeah, it's part of me was thinking it's IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, which I've had before. And I stopped drinking coffee today. Unfortunately, yesterday, while I knew I had it, I continued drinking the pot I had. I cleared something similar to this up before. This one's worse in terms of the amount of bloody tissue coming out of me. So I just have no idea. But I went a week or 2 without coffee last time, and then slowly added it back in. And I was mostly okay, And now I'm like, crap. But yeah, this time it feels worse. Anyhow, it is quite possible that, I may not be able to make it through this game or the year or whatever if there is something seriously wrong with me. I'm sure the hell not going to a doctor, though. All right, let's start trying to figure out how to deal and move these things. Part of the problem is I also have to pay attention to, hey, what German armies are available to move? And basically, the positioning here is the stuff up here, both German and French, has already been moving. That's, I think, the reason why there are certainly the stuff moving into Belgium has already been moving. I think that's kind of the argument for why you can't move these pieces. They're doing stuff, and during these turns, during the 1st and maybe 2nd turn, and you can't do anything during those turns. But to the south, everything's kind of free up. So I do have to worry. The German 7th and 6th armies, I believe, are both active. The 6th is a little weird. And for the French, the Alsace 1st and 2nd are all loose. And I think that's it. Still ridiculously rough, especially under these conditions. But I decide, hey, you know, I don't think I'll do the First Army first. I'll do the Alsatians. There's less of them, and I do want to get Mulhouse, and I know that. And I can look at, I've got one corps that's kind of available, so I can push that corps forward. And I start doing that, and then I come up with a couple of questions that have kind of had me locked in. First of all, I'm just going to launch an attack against this unit. Now, this is not the way this system works, unfortunately. You know, this is old style, you know, hey, let's mass firepower against one unit or whatever and try to push it out and hurt it the most, and then, you know, get a surrounding attack and whatever. And yeah, some of that's true and some of that works. If I can push this thing out of there, it does give me a positional advantage against Mulhouse in here, and that's a big deal, and I want to do that. That's great. But I'm running into some problems in terms of understanding stuff. First of all, is there a reason my cav might want to come down and try to fuck around with this railway? It could be a second corps that's involved in this attack, and if I do it right, I don't know if, I doubt I have that kind of movement. But maybe with force marches, I could get myself behind here and get what amounts to, I believe, a flanking attack on this thing. Because unless the rules have changed, and I don't think they have, as long as all the units are attacking and you get the flanking attack even if you allow one enemy break in the zone of controls that are involved in it. Okay, so that's an interesting idea, maybe, maybe not. Another thought, though, is, hey, this is part of this corps. I could just throw this up. Does that open a gap that these guys could come up? You know, I don't think so, because I got a big line of forts here. I don't think much damage is going to come from there. I think I can afford to be on the offensive. But then I got these mountain assets, and so there's two things that I don't remember. One is conversion of railways. I can find that pretty easily. But the other is these mountain assets, and I'm looking for them, and I do not see them in the French player special rules, which is a place, like, they are only those two French units or a couple of French units, and they're not in the index, so it's going to be a pain in the ass to look this up. And I think it's going to take me like 3 days to get through like the first player turn, the way I'm going and the way I feel and everything. So, oh boy. On the bright side, from the level of being able to play, if I can't get a little better, I'm not going to be able to go dancing this week. Found it adds to the PR level of the force, which is good. But only if attacking or defending mountainous terrain. And what is defined as mountainous terrain? Does that include mountain valley? Does that include, I would assume, mountain and steep mountain? But again, I don't know. I would almost assume it includes this mountain valley because it has the same modifier and same rules as the other mountain stuff. There was another thing that I forgot to mention that I had to worry about, which is the fortress here, how I beat that up. I can flip it over if I force it to retreat. That's about the only thing I can do, I think. I can't cost any step losses, so I don't know how I can capture it. So I'm kind of looking at that as well, because that's an important factor. And this force or something else could concentrate on blowing through that. Again, though, you know, there were no fortresses in the Serbian game. And it's hard to assimilate this additional knowledge at this point. I mean, I was reading, you know, I read through the rules, it all seemed to make sense, but now I'm left with the, yeah, but how do you capture these things? You can't destroy units, basically, and you can't cause step losses, you flip it over, but what does that mean? And I'm gonna have to read up on that and figure that shit out. And it really is gonna take me a significant amount of time to just move, you know, 3 stacks of units or something. I have to look in the living rules, because the way I see this, the way I'm reading it, fortress unit in combat, fortress never suffers step losses. They can only suffer step losses from bombardment. Well, clearly I'm not meant to have my siege artillery down here. In fact, the French have none, so they wouldn't be able to take any German fortresses that way. Somewhere, if it fails an EC, it flips to its backside, but nothing about being removed from the board. And there really is, fortified camps are actually defined. I didn't see that before. But there basically is no way to destroy a fortress from what I can see in this rule set. I don't think that makes sense. I think it makes sense that they can't suffer step losses from an assault, but that second retreat should knock them out of there. And that's what I would rule, but I'm going to look at the living rules and make sure that I've got that right. But yeah, this is painful. And I mean, if I didn't have them, what would I do? You know? Or what if they're no clearer? Well, the Cav wasn't able to slip around back here. It would have had to do one hell of a force march. I think they're only, I don't remember what they're able to get. But I came from here, 2, 4, 6, 8. It would cost me 9, 10, 16 movement points, which means I'd need 7 extra, and I don't think I can get that off of force march. Let's see. Oh, I can. You know, it might be worth it. Let's take a look. Force march effectiveness. I'd be making an EC. Oh, geez. That has an effectiveness check of 10. But I'd be adding 7 to a 2d6 roll. So chances are I would take some effectiveness hits for doing that. I don't know. What I can't do is I can't slide around back this way. This would be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and now I'm in zones here. These guys actually project zones, but maybe they don't, because that is the Rhine, and that's a hell of a river. And oops, I was just looking up zones, and they don't go over rivers, but they may go over them when there is a bridge. And plus, I gotta worry about bridges that I just broke by walking over stuff. Okay. So something about rivers, I swear. They extend into and out of any hexes and over any hex side except sea or mountain ridge. Okay, yeah, so I'm not going to be able to trace. I'm not going to be able to move through there. Poor cavalry doctrine. What the fuck? Okay, there's something that... is that the Allied cavalry, or... Is that... German cav or cannot enter enemy formation zone of control during the counter movement phase. Well, I forgot about that. Yeah, I mean, how big a deal is it for me to get those 2 column shifts? It's a pretty big thing. All right, we're gonna try doing a forced march because we never do those. So 7 extra movement points. And I think we rolled 2 dice. Yep, that's what it says. So I get a 15, that's 5 over. That's minus 2E, which is going to be combat effectiveness levels. Oh, yeah. How is that done? That's done with this. Yeah, I can do this. If this was an asset, I did not want to do it. So yeah, his combat effectiveness has dropped, but we've gotten ourselves in here, which is going to get us in a surrounded area. And I am going to look for an attack marker. It's not a prepared attack, but we're all attacking. I don't feel like dropping markers everywhere. Those aren't committed, but they're to help remind me, hey, there's a fight here, because this game is going to be a bitch for me. 81 Brigade. That is not this. That's sitting up with the 1st Army, so I'm going to mark this way and say, I've done enough for tonight. I moved enough pieces to make 1 attack. What's that going to mean? I don't know, because I forget about counter movement. The Germans are going to get to counter move against that, but whatever. The problems with any system as you're learning it is well, how much do I need to attack? You know, how much is safe? I could try to figure this out. Theoretically, I'm not supposed to be peeking at counters, but that's the only counter available there. But I can look at the odds that I'm getting, the shifts I'm getting, etc., and see, this is probably a pretty good attack. But I don't think that I could make 2 attacks that aren't pretty good or that are, you know, decent, right? And it's a problem I have anytime I'm picking up a new game and looking at it is this, geez, you know, unless it's got a really simple combat chart like the old Avalon Hill or SPI ones do, you just kind of, where you can look and see, 2-to-1 is what I want, 3-to-1 is what I want. Here, it's not so easy. It really isn't, especially with the you know, you've got your odds, but then you've got the effects of the PR level. Now, I've got some good PR units here. I think I have to use a force, but I've got a 5 there, so that's pretty good. And the Germans are not a 5, and that's a big deal. I don't know. I may be trying to overwhelm 1 tiny piece as opposed, but on the other hand, what's the reaction of these guys? Do they fall back? What do they do? I don't know. Do they move into that hex and help protect? Well, they can't. They can't go from zone to zone without like a force march. And is there anything behind me that can kind of fill in the gaps? Not quite. These LOC units, I think I'm beginning to see what their value is. Their value is that they have a zone of control. They slow the enemy down when he's moving around behind your lines, which is definitely a factor, but again, I don't know. There may have been ways to do it with less counters. All right. Again, I'm beat already. I'm going to try to figure out the 1st Army, whether or not I can do its attacks. And I'm sorry, you know, This isn't going to help much with the narrative, but I'm just trying to capture the, hey, moving from one game to the next, even though I vaguely remember the other game, I played it not that long ago. I'm worried about the stacking situation. I'm attacking into a mountainous area. Well, there are some differences between the two games' rules, and I went and looked also at the modifications in the living rules on this because I feel like this is an important point. In the Serbian game, first of all, it's all mountain areas. In both version 1 and 2 of these rules, it's only steep mountain hexes, so it will not apply here. Obviously, I can see reasons for that. The mountains that are present on this map are in general less rough than those in Eastern Europe. But all of them have this same strange wording, and I played this differently before. So here, no more than 2 1/4 division can attack from or defend in one hex in an attack phase. In mountains, it's a little different, and I interpreted this in a very painful way. When defending in or attacking into or out of a steep mountain hex, or when attacking across steep mountain hex side, the number of division equivalents allowed to participate in combat is reduced. This is different, right? I'm allowed to attack from a given hex with 2 1/4 division equivalents. If I'm attacking from multiple hexes, I can throw lots and lots of units in. What's not clear is, because the wording is different and it uses allowed to participate in combat. The way I played this made mountains really, really hard to fight your way through, because you basically couldn't overwhelm the enemy with numbers. And I don't know if that's the intention or not. I guess I'll keep playing that way. There aren't a lot of mountains, and I don't particularly care to see the French break through very easily. But and also, it's only the steep mountains. That's the key issue here. So there are certain hexes that are more problematic than others, and you can cut them from supply and stuff like that as you break through passes. So I'm not too worried about it. But again, that wording is ambiguous, and it would be helpful to have that clarified. Not necessarily, not in my old rule book necessarily, but I'd expect that in the newer versions of the game. It left me with some question before, and now it's leaving me with question again. Because if I surround you, I should be able to get more force against you. However, you should be able to defend with more force as well, which is something which isn't the case with normal hexes either. And I find that kind of disturbing as well. These hexes are large enough that you're not talking about the entirety of the force being present in them, and you could create a little cluster on a corner or whatnot. And this is the kind of thing that always disturbs me with the hex-based games, which works much, much better when you're playing with minis on the tactical level at least. But even here, it kind of feels like something is not being expressed correctly. Running into that I don't understand. I got these little mountain peak things, and I assume they don't mean anything, but I got these little bones here. The closest thing on the terrain chart that they look like might be bridges. They're clearly not. Again, I'm going to ignore it. It looks like there's some words near it, which may indicate some kind of structure or something. There's a border there, which I just don't understand what that's supposed to represent. They seem to only occur along the border in the mountains, and I don't know what they mean. And I don't see anything that reflects what they might mean on here. So I guess they're probably just pieces of information that aren't important. But it is a little disturbing because they look important, kind of, almost. I made my way through the First Army. A couple of prepared attacks. Just trying to bust my way through. Now, I had to look this sucker up because it's not part of the base rules. It's in the playbook based on the setup, whatever. Inactive units. I remembered something about until activated. Well, attacking this unit, when I actually do so, will make it into an active unit. The rest of the army, if the army were inactive, would not be so. But yeah, I want to punch through there. That puts me to the Second Army, which I'm trying to see them. I think they're active, and I think they have their own goals. And given my movement, I can remove these, and I can place based on the Second Army's positioning. Probably that's all I'll do, though. And see if I can heal myself somehow. Temporary health is definitely improving, and that makes it more likely that I'll be able to get a little bit better pace than I expect. Probably get this turn done as a whole turn, not just the French side of it. Oh, maybe today and tomorrow if I'm lucky. We'll see. There aren't a lot of pieces to move, it turns out. The line basically stops up here. I've got some attacks planned, 2 of them prepared assaults that I'm actually committed to making, and I think everything beyond here is sort of out of play. It's kind of hard to tell. I mean, I probably have some loose units like the Dunkirk garrison here I could move, but that doesn't really help me. Ooh, I got the Belgians. Nope, I don't got the Belgians. All right. Yeah, and even this Paris, this unit that was dependent on being X hexes away from Paris, it's associated with the Fourth Army, I think. So that's not going to be moving anytime soon. Which gets me to the counter move phase. And I might do a little yard work. I ate a random mushroom and feeling a little weird from that. It was growing in my driveway. I figured I couldn't just kill it, but eating it seems fair. The bigly painful thing I'm coming across as I start the counter moves for the Germans. I have to worry about any goals for the German armies. Now, I think I'm safe here, right? The 6th Army is not under any particular goal yet. And I think the 7th Army doesn't have one. 6th has one, but it's not in play yet. So right now I don't have to worry about the restrictions of the plans. But you can see, I've got my tokens out here, but now it's not 9 movement points, and I'm probably more looking at reinforcing and defending things. I'd still be restricted in my movements along those lines. Now, I don't think it makes much difference where one side is on the offensive and the other is on the defensive in a clear sort of fashion. But it is going to become more problematic when we hit, say, over here, where the 4th Army and the 5th Army have goals. At the same time, the French have goals, and I won't be able to react defensively, even in my counter move phase, in quite the way I want to. And I guess part of it is the not being able to react defensively properly. And to some extent, I can wave that away and say, well, that's probably for the best. Even if it creates some incongruous situations. But what I'm more worried about is having to place these little discs each time for each army as things play out. Of course, it'll get better when armies reach their goals or abandon them or whatever. But yeah, I was looking and saying, wow, do I have to worry about this and put new markers down for the 7th Army? No, not yet. But there is going to be a time where I have to be putting markers down for both, first for the attacker and then for the defender in the same player turn. So I found what those weird lines mean. Those are apparently these elevation transitions, and they're called out because it means the transition is so gradual that it doesn't have an impact, doesn't give a penalty for attacking uphill. This is a little weird. I'm still trying to figure out what's up with an elevation effect. So, the problem is, and this is repeated in the combat section, the wording for elevation is relevant attackers at lower elevation. What's that supposed to mean? Well, I couldn't find an explanation in the combat section. I came here to find it, and it's not really here either. Foresting gets rid of any elevation change, which makes sense because you're getting so close. It's very important to combat resolution 9.6 and 10.1. 10.1 is terrain effects on artillery. We're not worried about that quite yet. But 9.6, the wording is, again, up elevation 1 to the left if the relevant participating units are attacking up an elevation. Not some, not all, either of which I could interpret very, very easily. The. I'm going to take a look and see whether that's worded a little better in the Serbian game. Again, you know, this brings up a big thing. If you're looking at this one to try to figure out how to play the system, and this isn't the one to look at it at. Take a look at my Serbian, Must Serbian, or whatever. I make some effort to kind of show the systems in process in the first video of that. But here, I'm more worried. This is hard to get a grasp on for me. So. That was hard too, so don't expect it to ever be smooth, anything that I do. I'm showing you as I learn. But here, I'm working on the additional barriers beyond the core of the system, sort of, that I think I kind of capture there with many mistakes. But game, they don't have it in the rule book, but in the terrain chart, it's specified as all attacking units are affected by the elevation transition. Here, there's a little bit of a difficulty because of the forested things. The way the forest is worded, well, you most definitely don't have to worry about the forest hexes. The way that's worded is, if an attack exclusively through forest never results in an elevation CRT, if it's conducted through a forested hex side and non-forested, the elevation situation present at the non-forested hex side determines if there's a CRT shift in elevation. But anyway, I'm going to go with what the Serbian games rules are on this, because it's more in line with everything else. Everything's got to be crossing a river. Everything's got to be a prepared attack. It's that kind of thing to give you an advantage or a disadvantage. Yeah, I'm getting ready to roll some dice. Paul, during the Serbian game, if you were watching that, I almost never used intense combat. Here I'm forced to, and right away I can see the ugliness to it. Yeah, I gained a hex. through one of these little white circled numbers. Well, that means I'm paying a step in exchange for that hex. That's a painful trade as far as I'm concerned, and one that I'm fundamentally unwilling to make, which is why I generally did not do intense combat. But here you're forced to with the army goals until such a time as they're no longer in play. And yeah, we're going to see some casualties, and that's all well and good as far as the French Plan 17 is, that's for sure. As an alternative over here, I didn't have to, so I didn't use it. And I probably should have, because this guy's in a little bit of trouble. The way I slipped him in there, he's not in supply there. So he could end up getting hurt. Unfortunately for the Germans, they really don't have anything they can deploy against him either, so it's all right. I would have been a little better off if I had positioned like this or something, but I didn't. But no gain there. I got a couple more attacks to play out. Again, I'm taking this real slow, trying to make sure I understand the system, not just trying to bludgeon through it. So I had to look up stuff like, which is the first die? You know, is it the white one, whatever? Because here they talk about the white die roll modifier. I was pretty sure it was the one along the column. Well, that's the first die, and that wasn't clear to me until I figured out, wait, it has to be the first die because it determines what the other die roll, you know, what row or set of rows the other die roll can generate. Hard to tell what the best French result is. They gained hexes here and here. I think without a loss here. No, they took a loss there. Here they took combat effectiveness damage, which was really unlikely to tell you the truth. But here they didn't manage to get the hex. Everywhere else they got the hex. That's going to put me on a counterattack phase. I highly doubt there's going to be one, but I need a break. And then I hit the finishing phase where I do some cleanup and then go over to the Germans. Just, again, trying to take this as kind of mellowly as I can because yeah, two different primary objectives for the French Second Army, which is kind of interesting. If they get either of them, they can call it a success. Again, as the designer points out, his view is that Joffre's plan was incredibly flexible and opening up things like this where you have, you know, armies, is this third? Yeah. Armies that, you know, have two different major objectives. And the way the minor objectives are set up, it gives them some capability to do stuff like fall back on positions and stuff, just because you get this sort of triangulation between all the possible objective points, which means if you push yourself within them, you actually have a lot of flexibility. But it isn't a very big pattern, at least the couple that we've seen. We'll see how these play out. Maybe they'll give a little bit more room for the French armies to fiddle around with. We'll see. Alrighty. No direct counterattacks during the French turn. Nothing too exciting happened in the finishing phase. I did put a couple of these down, and there's probably others that need to be put down. There's some rivers along here that I need markers on. And it's kind of a pain because you can tell where they are pretty much, but did we cross any rivers here? You know, so there's rivers that I just don't want to clutter things up. I am making the attack here, and I've shifted a bunch of forces to the left towards the Swiss border in order to help cover Mulhausen. I have excess forces. I don't need to have the solid line yet, so there's a certain safety in the way the system works. Like most operational level games, your advantage is not necessarily with solid positioning. Now, we did find with the Serbian game, it's also not every other hex like it is in, most zone of control operational style games from an earlier era. If you think about like the Avalon Hill Classics or the SPI games from about that period, you really kind of want clumps, but I feel like the mountainous terrain gives me some capability to handle fallbacks from there. I've also spread 6th Army out a little bit, covering things a little more. I'm really just getting kind of close to the position that I would be in with that contiguous line if I need to create it. And let's see, I guess that puts me to the counter movement phase, and we'll see what the French can do. One thing they might, nope, because I got zones here. So, I mean, I could force march to try to cover my cav unit. My hope had been to gain ground on that unit, and that's why I went with the flanking attack. That's 2 shifts in my favor. It wasn't good enough. And an intense attack wouldn't have actually helped had I done one. So it wouldn't have gained me the territory, which I'm regretting not doing an intense attack there. I didn't have to, but if I had realized how vulnerable I had put myself, I think I would have. Those guys are potentially in a lot of danger. Let's see. I'm just making sure I haven't left anything out, but I think all the other armies are frozen for this first turn. And I don't have to build the contiguous until 2 interphases in. So, got a little bit of room to play with that. I've got this isolation marker here just as a reminder if an attack happens, but there's one planned. I don't actually have to worry about that, and here's why. It hasn't actually checked supply yet. The supply phase is during a player turn. It's not part of the joint interface or anything like that. So he hasn't suffered. He would be suffering a 3 CEL reduction, which would be devastating if he was out of supply. But I have the capability during counter movement to attempt to move. To succeed in moving. I'm allowed to pull an extra 7 movement points on that cav unit to pull out of this area. So I can get up to 12 movement points. Now, I'm going to probably take some additional CEL reduction anyway, but I won't be taking the hit from the combat, which I really don't want to face. I definitely did not set up as cleverly as I should have on that attack. And this is going to cause some problems for getting to Mulhausen. That shift south is a big deal. Able to get that cav unit out of there. Its forced march only cost it 1 more CEL. Now that brings it down to 3 losses, which is not at all good. And the only reason I can do that is because there's no orders on the Alsatian army. If I had done something that stupid over on the 1st or 2nd Army, I could only withdraw in my counter movement in the direction of one of my objectives, which might not be sufficient. It depends. The 1st Army could pull this way because there's like markers over there and stuff. Otherwise, counter movement, well, I found this damn thing, which I forgot about. It's part of the 2nd Army, but it belongs over with a corps that's part of the 3rd Army. It sets up this way. Yes, I could use it for a while. I really don't like the idea of having detached units, and I don't think I'm going to need it. So I'm setting it, starting on its way during this counter movement, but I don't know if I want to cross army boundaries, because then I got to hand it off to somebody else, and that's probably something I don't really want to do. quite yet, but it's got a long way to walk, so I don't know. By the time it gets into range, it'll be with the Fourth Army and able to operate with them, and that probably is better than where it is. Although I probably just cheated. Yep, I did. All right, we'll just leave him here. I could reposition him with another army, but if I do that, he's inactive. So I kind of got to leave him with the second army, but I really kind of don't want to advance with him yet. So maybe I'll see an advantage to that. I don't think there's going to be any attacks. I looked over, well, there aren't going to be any attacks. I looked over the German positions, and frankly, I have not looked at the French positions. They may have an attack here or something that they want to make. So we'll see if there's any counterattacks that I want to make. So I launched 2 counterattacks, one here, which went relatively well. I took basically no losses. The Germans are now a demoralized force. It's just this little thing, but I got to get that out of the line, and it makes Mulhausen a lot more difficult to defend if, I mean, I've got other units I can shift around, but I'm facing a much stronger force that can buckle the weak points pretty easily. Over here I launched one as well. This went really terribly badly for the French. I had local superiority there, so I figured, well, let's go for it. You know, I mean, 4 units to 1. It ends up being like a 3-to-1 attack. No modifiers for anything really, but the dice ended up turning out so that first of all it's intensive on the attacker because that's what I must do because I have goals, and then it's the die roll came out to one of the bloodiest die rolls that or situations that can come out. Let me see if I can find it. I'm having trouble seeing it. It may have been way down here somewhere. There it is. Plus 3S, plus 1S. You can see kind of deep into the, you know, both die rolls were high. So with no retreat results, the French took 2 losses on their units. The Germans took 1. It was a bloody result all around. And then for the CE checks, the French all failed and took a level of CE losses. So things are looking pretty bad over there at this point. That puts us on sort of the wrap-up for the turn at this point, which is the finishing phase. I gotta look to see Cav want to leave, and there are no victory points this player turn that are gonna happen. So I guess I just look to see if any Cav leave, and then we're going to move that game turn marker forward. And I think I'll load this one up after that.